Hello, my name is Bernardo Rocha, and I'm here to talk to you about our work. Our work is a systemic review on quizzes as a tool for self-regulated learning in software engineering education. We'll start by introducing some questions that are related to our work, namely that students' way of learning changes with the use of technological tools, and that using quizzes for learning has been around for many years since it was first discussed. As such, we need to look at some of the technological based transformations that have occurred in learning. One such transformation is the inverted classroom, which is technology supported pedagogy. And Bishop and Vogler define this type of learning as direct computer based individual instruction outside the classroom. And this allows the learner to discover for himself how to overcome his own challenges by reflecting on his own actions and by reflecting on how to find new knowledge. This is a type of self-regulated learning. Zimmerman stated that self-regulated learning aims to define a student's learning process and motivational beliefs based on three self-regulation phases. The forethought phase, where you are concerned with task analysis and self-motivation beliefs. The performance phase, that relates to self-control and self-observation. The self-reflection phase, that relates to self-judgment and self-reactions. This is a cyclical model that where each phase feeds into the next one, and it can be iterated over many times. Nielsen stated that quizzes can support self-regulated learning by providing opportunities for several activities and assignments that help with self-regulated learning. As, as examples, Nielsen identified student-developed test questions, student-created review sheets, pre-exam knowledge surveys during the forethought phase. So these are activities and assignments to prepare for exams. When you are running an exam, when you're performing an exam, you are in a sense conducting a knowledge survey. And after an exam, you are in the self-reflection phase, and you will obviously do self-reflection and attempt to diagnose the preparation problems that were identified during your performance. So we conducted a systematic review, and this is an overview of our process. We will simply focus on certain aspects of this. One such aspect is our definition of our objectives, where we defined our objectives as 1. Analyze scientific publications that address software engineering teaching. 2. Analyze scientific publications that study the use of quizzes in teaching, and in particular as self-regulating pedagogical tools. 3. Develop a review and a mapping of the literature on software engineering teaching and quizzes. And a particular aspect that we had was to attempt to justify and motivate the creation or the implementation of a software engineering shared quiz repository, a quiz repository that can be shared across multiple institutions. We then defined our research questions, which is obviously an important aspect of this. So our research questions were: number 1, are quizzes used in software engineering education? Number 2, how are quizzes used in software engineering education? Number 3, are quizzes used in software engineering education for the self-regulation of learning? Number 4, how are quizzes used in software engineering education for the self-regulation of learning? Number 5, how can we improve the use of quizzes in software engineering education? In our process, we defined the data extraction form to help us extract the questions. And this data extraction form was composed of the following fields: the type of application of quizzes, the context which quizzes were applied, the phases of the Zimmerman cyclical model that were considered either implicitly or explicitly, the types of activities that were considered implicitly or explicitly, and the positive results from the application of quizzes and the negative results from the application of quizzes. This is an overview of our methodology. There's nothing incredibly interesting here. We just conducted our search, we imported the studies, we selected studies according criteria that allowed us to either accept it or reject it. We did some quality assessment, which allowed us to select the studies that had a better quality score. And then we extracted the data, and then we analyzed the data. In our data extraction, we identified different types of application of quizzes. We identified that there were essentially two important contexts, namely in lecture versus outside the lecture, and the type of course. Actually, it was three types of context and the course subject. We will talk about them in more detail further on when we approach our data analysis. Our results from the data extraction saw that identified the different phases that the studies mentioned implicitly or explicitly, and the activity types implicitly or explicitly. We extracted some interesting positive results, namely that quizzes allowed for better self-assessment, pop quizzes improved student performance, and gamified quizzes improved students' engagement. Quizzes and the creation of quizzes increase task performance. Quiz games can promote an engaged experience to the players. Users like the interactivity provided by online quizzes. Quizzes that allow diagnostic of common errors allow students to improve, and the classification of quiz questions into concepts and cognitive levels allows the course staff and students to identify problem areas easily. Quizzes were also an effective motivator for watching lectures in an inverted classroom. Quiz games improved the academic outcomes of students. In lecture, quiz games made students pay closer attention and had a positive effect on learning. And we found some motivational aspects in learning that were applied in some work as a way to improve learning, and these include active learning. Quizzes can be used as a means to generate student feedback. They can be used to improve student involvement, and these include motivational aspects, to improve student attitude, to improve student experience, to improve student satisfaction, and to improve student communication. The negative results that we found were that the preparation quizzes before a class had no benefit in one of the studies, and weekly graded quizzes can increase student anxiety according to one of the studies. So, we then analyzed our data and we tried to figure out how this answers our research questions. Are they used in software engineering education? Yes, they are indeed used in software engineering education. So how are they used? Well, they are used in different manners. You have different types of application, namely generic quizzes, online quizzes, pop quizzes, gamified quizzes, quiz games, and quiz creations. And you also have different contexts of applications. This can be inside lecture or outside lecture. And you can also have, in the context of application, the type of course or learning system where they were applied to, and these include traditional courses, online courses, hybrid courses, or intelligent tutor systems. Another context is the subject of the course where they were applied to, and we found them applied to algorithms, programming, software design, software engineering, software project management, and software security. So, our third research question: are quizzes used in software engineering education for the self-regulated learning? Yes, they are indeed used in software engineering education as self-regulated learning. We found several examples that approach our focus on each of the different phases of the Zimmerman cyclical model, and found all the types of self-regulated learning activities that are supported by quizzes. However, most of the studies did so implicitly and not explicitly, meaning there was no particular concern to take into account the Zimmerman's cyclical model or the activities proposed by Nielsen. They were there, but they were not explicitly mentioned. So we assume there was no particular care when implementing this to emphasize those aspects and to get a better benefit from the implementation of quizzes by considering those aspects. How are quizzes used in software engineering education for the self-regulation of learning? We can see that As we stated before, they are used in different manners and different phases of the Zimmerman cyclical model and the different types of self-regulated learning activity. However, as we stated before, no particular care and no particular focus on that. There was no emphasis on those aspects. Research question 5. How can we improve the use of quizzes in software engineering education? There was no clear answer for this question. We can provide some suggestions, making sure that the application of quiz does not increase student anxiety in order to minimize one aspect mentioned by study, examining how to apply preparation quizzes so that it can produce the adequate benefits, and taking care how to maximize the benefits to students' performance, engagement, motivation, and attitude, uh, maximizing the benefits of having a feedback mechanism and the benefits of using them as a tool for self-assessment and diagnostic, uh, approaching the deployment of quizzes with a specific focus on the Zimmerman cyclical model and the activities supported by quizzes, and facilitating the application of quizzes, and perhaps, and this relates to another work of ours, facilitate the application of quizzes to software engineering education by means of a shared repository of quizzes and the tools required to manage and administer the quizzes, that's so that they can easily be deployed. So this is the work. It is a shared quiz repository that allows running quizzes, and it also allows students to take their own quizzes. And it has been running for about a year. It started running originally in a software architecture course and then in a software engineering course. You can find it at this address, and the code is available on GitHub. So our results showed that there were potential benefits of using quizzes as a tool for self-regulated learning, and we found in the studies common and proposed challenges to address the use of quizzes in the context of software engineering and to improve the students' self-regulated learning. We also identified failures mainly related to the correct application of Zimmerman's cyclical model, which provides the basis and process to support self-regulated learning for students. Namely, the main failure was they did not apply it. This relationship between learning and motivation has great impact on educational environments. As a consequence, we can say that quizzes can be used as a way of assessing students, but also to stimulate the participation, motivation, and learning of these students. We believe that current studies can be better explored, and with more research in this field, especially concerning self-regulated models, methods, and techniques of learning supported by the use of quizzes, research relating to the impact in the form of learning on software engineering, the use of quizzes shared among various institutions, and procedures for assessing the quality and validity of quiz questions based on scientific criteria. We argue that a standard body of peer-reviewed questions and that can be reused in different faculties can facilitate the bootstrapping effort required, and can be reused by different faculties, and can better reflect the state-of-the-art and current knowledge of the topic being taught, and can confer the ability to potentially analyze student skills at various universities, and can enable teachers to better understand the weaknesses of the curriculum and the problem areas that may cause problems for students, provide a better understanding of what those problems are. I'd like to thank you, the Impress project. This work was done in the context of the Impress project. Thank you all very much. If you have any questions, you can contact me at this email, or you can contact the Impress project at this email, or visit the project's webpage, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn.